Hello, everyone, and welcome to the I Am Love Builders show. And a great big welcome and shout out to our broadcast partners. Just want you to know that I Am Love Builders is a show that is devoted to all things dealing with relationships and communication. Whether you are married or single, our goal is to make you the MVP of your relationship. That is the most valuable partner in your marriage. And we want you to know that we want your marriage to be strong and healthy. And that is our goal.
Yep, absolutely.
And also, we want you to know and remember that if you're not having fun, you are not doing it right.
No doubt about that. Hey, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. I Am Love Builders, and we wrote a book called Divorce Proofing Your Marriage. And you can get that on Amazon. In fact, they hit the hot new release list on Amazon. You can get a free ebook from our website, iamlovebuilders.com. We have some free training we do twice a month here on social media. So you can check those out, those MVP huddles. We also have an MVP Partner Club program you can take advantage of. And we have a way for you to do that now very inexpensively. So you can do that for $29.97 a month. You can get access to that training. We have, you can scan that QR code, get more information on that. We do free workshops as well for groups of 10 or more. And we are doing a casting call for our new TV show that's going to be airing later this year. We're about half casted.
Yes.
So, we got about 3 more spots left. So if you're interested in that, let us know. All right. So we are excited to interview a lady I met online a few weeks ago. Her name is Tammy Vincent, and we wanted to devote the whole show to her because she has a lot of stuff going on. We want to make sure we can unpack that and make sure our audience gets a chance to really get to know Tammy. So Tammy Vincent is a coach, speaker, best-selling author, NLP practitioner, which we have to figure out what that means, and also a thriver. I want to hear about that as well. You can get more information from her website at tammyvincent.com. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So please introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us, who you are and kind of how you got to do what you're doing.
Well, right now, like you mentioned, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, an author. I'm really just kind of doing anything I can to help people have better relationships with themselves and their families and their loved ones and whoever it is. But what I deal with primarily is I deal with people post-traumatic. So I deal with people that grew up in the throes of major dysfunction, that just had all kinds of crazy stuff. They didn't have good role models. They didn't get to experience love. They didn't get to do all those things that we consider normal when we're in a healthy relationship. And now here they are merging into adulthood, and I don't want to say don't have a clue, but ultimately at the beginning, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
So in 30 years of going through and figuring out, what do you do? How do you stop codependent relationships? And how do you heal all the subconscious programming that was done to you as a child when you were being told things that were not true and all of these things? And now it's like I have all these tools and this toolbox of tools, and I want to use them.
Okay. So, but how did you get started? Who is Tammy Vincent? How did you get to where you're at now? I mean, how did all this happen?
So growing up, the easiest way it happened was growing up with 2 alcoholic parents, and then entering adulthood and going to become a mom for the first time and realizing I didn't have a clue. Did not have a clue. I didn't understand unconditional love. I didn't understand parenting. I didn't understand any of that. So I really dove into, let's figure this out. And it was through therapy and NCOA meetings, which is National Children of Alcoholics, and ACA meetings, and all these 12-step programs. And just, there was so much. And what I realized is I started to figure out that you can go to a therapist and fix your mind. You can go to do yoga and fix your body, and you can pray and fix your spirit, but they're so all integrated, and there had to be shortcuts to integrate them all together. So
Mhm.
that's what I spent a long time trying to figure out how to do.
All right. Very
Very
good.
good.
So now, Tammy, did you have siblings as well growing up, or were you an only child?
I did have an older brother and a younger sister, so I was in the middle.
All right. Very good. I know I've heard some stories from, well, Casper's mom sharing a little bit of her story, and she had alcoholic parents as well, and the things that she grew up very fast and learned to do in order to take care of her parents, take care of the household, and cope.
Yep.
A lot of coping mechanisms that we as human beings create and take on, but not all of those coping mechanisms are positive and helpful to us. Would you agree?
I think they're positive and helpful to us when we're in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But those same,
Right.
when you're a child and you're going through that, it's survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain is wired to survive and to help you survive.
Right.
So you're going to cope and you're going to develop these skills, you could say, and they are skills
Mm-hmm.
that help you survive and help you get through things mentally and physically. And then once you become an adult, those same coping skills do not help you. So I'll give you an example. Like, let me just give one example.
Yes.
So if you learn, because you have a lot of shame as a child, to completely isolate yourself, and you come up with this theory of nobody's going to help me, I don't need anybody. And you are become this ultra independent person who doesn't need anybody, won't rely on anybody, thinks they got it all together. Well, then you go into your first adult relationship and you don't let that person give you anything. You're afraid to take that, you won't need anything. You're just completely standoffish. And so again, that's something that when you were a child, you completely isolated yourself because it helped you. You were there for yourself. But then when you should get into a relationship or get married or whatever it is, now you really do need to depend on people to become a cohesive unit, but you have to learn that. So that's just one small example.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Is that because you couldn't count on your parents for them to be present in the moment? Or, I mean, what is for someone who has never been in that situation, what does it look like growing up in a home to where both parents are alcoholics?
You really don't have anybody to depend on. And even like in my particular situation, it was very volatile. So there was a lot of, you were scared as a child. So you didn't want to be around anybody because you didn't want to rock any boats. You didn't want to, make someone angry. You just stayed away. You didn't know what kind of night it was going to be, if, mom and dad were going to be in a good mood and talking and joking, or if there was going to be things throwing and people getting hit. And it was just, so you just learned to kind of stay away. It was easier to just keep to myself than to take a risk, really.
Okay.
Now, was it an abusive situation as well, or just them being kind of absent?
It was both. My mom was, she was also unfortunately a drug addict, and there was a lot of things that were done. Probably, I look back at it now and I have a lot of empathy and I have a lot of compassion for the situation, but back then it was just scary.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So tell us, Tammy, how did you come up with all of these tools that you have and decided, because you had to break out of your own shell first before you got to a point where you turned around and said, hey, maybe I can help some other people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even the stories that I tell now, I couldn't have told 30 years ago without breaking down.
Right.
I mean, I had, and it was even people used to say, you ought to write a book about your, your experiences, and you ought to write a book about this, and you ought to help people. And I wasn't ready because I feel like when you're doing that, you have to get to a place where, even with a story or a speech or anything, where it's not about you, it's about what you've learned and how other people can benefit from it. But when you're in the throes of it, or you're just in the beginning stages of it, it is about you, because you're still in that survival mode. So when a lot of people say, oh, I became a coach because it's kind of like my own therapy. Well, I'm like, well, that's great, but your clients don't want their session to be your
Right.
therapy session.
Right. Exactly. Hey, so we're going to take a quick break. We are here with Tammy Vincent. She is a coach, a speaker, and best-selling author. We're going to get into this NLP practitioner and some other things. We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live, it's just going to be a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. But if you're watching through a podcast link later, it may be a minute or so for our sponsors. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Tammy. All right, we are back with Tammy Vincent. And if you are watching us live we're streaming on several Facebook pages and so forth. If you have a comment or a question for Tammy or Cheryl and I, feel free to type that in. It should pop up on our screen and we'll be able to potentially get to that question. So it's going to be a great conversation here with Tammy as we get into some of these tools and strategies that she has developed over the course of her career. Now, Tammy, in your bio, you mentioned NLP practitioner. What is an NLP practitioner?
So I'm going to put it in the simplest terms I can. So if breaking down, it's a neuro-linguistic programming. So the neuro part of it is the brain. The linguistic part of it is communication. And the programming is just your patterns of behavior. So basically what it is it's how to take the relationship between what you're thinking, how you're expressing it, and the actions and behaviors that it helps you do. So in what I do, dealing with, let's say, I like to use real-time examples, but it could be something as simple as someone coming to me and saying, hey, I've got really bad anxiety. And we break it down and we follow it back and we find out that they have anxiety because whenever they were talking to their parents always like ignored them.
Okay.
Or their parents got violent with them. So we would literally sit there and we would it's almost like giving things new meaning. So we would talk through it. Like we could have, I've sat with people before and we've literally sat with like a younger version of themselves. And when they could picture that parent yelling at them or belittling them or berating them, we literally can visualize that parent and we can visualize the voices getting smaller or getting quieter. And because it's something that causes anxiety, it's like a trigger. So we can literally picture that and we give it new meaning. We twist it around and we reframe it. So now we can picture mom, instead of being this monster you see it as a child, now you might back her away, make her walk backwards or make her get quieter, and just use the different senses to just really change how you are seeing that.
So
go ahead.
It sounds like a milder form of hypnosis. Does that make sense, to where you're not going into a deep trance, but you are kind of picturing and visualizing these things happening?
There are a lot of similarities, and in a lot of what I've done, there has been a lot of mild and mediocre and moderate and severe hypnosis going on all at the same time. But yes, when you're doing something like that, you would literally calm yourself, take some deep breaths, get yourself into like what they consider a semi-hypnotic state.
Sure.
And then you could do that. So it's not like, I know a lot of people have this preconceived notion of what hypnosis is too, with the, the thing swinging pendulum going back and forth and you are getting sleepy, and that's not really what it's like. Although that works sometimes, but it's just, there's so many different techniques. Another one I really like is anchoring. So, and that's one of the, I think, very simple ones to help people do. So if you get startled constantly by, say, a dog, you just don't like dogs, and they scare you. When you see a dog, you physically force yourself to think of the most happy sight that you could think of, or the most happy experience you could ever think of. So picture yourself on a beach, or picture yourself wherever you want, on whatever. And you think of that every time that dog comes, you start to think of that as a happy thing. And you anchor the fear to that better situation. And eventually you'll hear a dog bark and you'll
Mhm.
picture yourself on the beach or whatever that happy thing is. So
Right.
you literally can like anchor a thought and it steers you away from the negative things. So it's almost like, you know, I say we get triggered by so many different things, a smell, a sound, a taste, all these things. So you're really like almost reinventing and giving yourself positive triggers.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I like what you offer and what you bring to the table as opposed in relationship to relationships, because um, in our coaching, even though we do coach married couples, uh, we also, in the first 5 chapters of our book, we basically address singles, because I firmly believe you need to be a happy, healthy, free single before you can be a happy, healthy, uh, free married couple. You know what I'm saying? Because I
Absolutely.
talk to singles a lot, and one thing that I encourage them is that you need to get healed. You need
Right.
to get whole. You need to, whatever trauma you've had in your life, you need to understand that that is going to carry over. If you don't deal
Mhm.
with it, it will carry over, it will grow, it will multiply. And when you get married and have a husband and have children, that's a problem. But
Mhm.
don't step into that arena until you have worked on you. You need to find the place where you're happy and you're whole and you've dealt with those things that have become anchors in your life, negative anchors, I should say,
Right.
that hold you back or bring about fear or trauma, those type of things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right. You can't pour from an empty cup. I mean, just flat out. You
Right.
can't give love that you don't feel for yourself. Like you just can't. I mean, you can, you know, people always say, well, how do you love someone and not love yourself? And it's like, then I'll say, well, yeah, there was a point in which like I could love someone without loving myself, but I wasn't even being myself. Most of these people that are coming from these households
Mhm.
of they lose a sense of self. So
Mhm.
like you said, before you can give, you don't even know who you are. You
Right.
have to figure out who you are, what you like.
Mhm.
Um, when you deal with say a 20-year-old that's come out of a house with two emotionally unavailable parents, let's just put
Mhm.
it that way, because that can
Mhm.
cover any kind of dysfunction.
Right.
It doesn't have to be alcoholism. It can be anything. You know, you're starting from ground one with these people. You can say, you know, what are your values so that you could set boundaries and you can attract the right people into your life. And 9
Mhm.
times out of 10, they're not even going to know.
Mm.
Right. Right.
Not even going to know.
And a lot of times with singles, they don't seem to, in our experience, they don't seem to understand why they keep getting into these same bad relationships. And we try to explain to them that you have chosen the same type of personality, different physical face, but the personality, the root, you have chosen the same one, and you attracted to that one over and over again until you acknowledge that and deal with it or unpack it. You will continue to pick the same person, wonder why nobody loves me, or why no one cares for me, or no one is willing to help me.
Yeah. Like in your case, Tammy, being raised by two people that were into drugs and alcohol, you could have turned that into a normal situation to where that's who you look for in a spouse because that's all you knew, right? Had you not gotten healed from that, you could have assumed that that was normal. And then every time you turn around, it seems like you're just always hooking up or getting into a relationship with someone like that because that was normal for you, growing up.
And there's lots of reasons you do that. I mean, the brain is an amazing, amazing, amazing
Mm-hmm.
tool that is given to us at birth by God, and it's there to help us. But
Right.
at the same time, it likes familiarity.
Mhm.
It likes
Mhm.
it knows comfort.
Right.
When you get out of a world of chaos where you're literally running on cortisol and adrenaline and all this
Mhm.
fight and flight and fear
Mhm.
and you actually slow down,
Yeah.
it is very scary what you're
Yeah.
left with.
Absolutely.
It's very scary.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's so yeah, you have to literally retrain everything. And that's what's so neat about the brain, because I always say that I'm like, it's an amazing tool, but yet it can be so easily tricked. You just
Yeah.
have to have the tools to do it.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're here with Tammy Vincent. Folks, you're listening to I Am Love Builders show, and we're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live, it's just going to be for a few seconds, but if you're watching later, it may be a minute or so. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back in just a moment. All right, welcome back to the Love Builders Show with Casper and Cheryl, and we have a special MVP guest in the studio today with us, Tammy Vincent. She is a coach, speaker, best-selling author, NLP practitioner, which we heard about in the last segment. And now I want to get to this thriver. Why do you call yourself a thriver?
Because I feel like if we're all standing here right now, we've all survived.
Right.
So we've made it, right? We've
Mhm.
gotten to the next step. We're here.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want everybody to ask themselves the question, is it enough? Like, do I just want to exist, or do I want to thrive? Because
Yeah.
if you're alive, you've survived.
Right.
And people have survived horrific things.
Right.
But you can stay in your little world of this is all there is,
Mhm.
or you can get out of that world. And all of that is a choice.
Yeah. I asked a similar question like that on social media several weeks ago, and I was basically directing it to Christians, and I'm saying, okay, so if you are saved, I get it. Okay, so now you're saved. So now what, right? Are you just going to be saved and silent? Or are you going to do what the Bible says, which is now go out and make disciples of other people, right? Are you going to share the good news as it talks about? Or are you just going to just kind of keep it quiet and
Right.
not share that, right? So that to me is thriving as a Christian. That means that you are out there in the world, right? You're being an influence on the world. You're being the salt, light, and love out there. You're showing them how it's supposed to be done. In the area of relationships and marriage, Christian marriages should be like the shining example of how it should be.
Mhm.
Right? We used to say they must be Christians, man, because their marriage is really together and so forth. As opposed to us, as in the body of Christ, having the same divorce rate as the world has.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of difference, and that is unacceptable to us. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. And I love what you do, by the way. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's true. And it's, you can sit there, and I tell people, it's kind of like people are like, well, I'm happy. And I'm like, but is there joy?
Right.
That's
Right.
just one small example. That there's such a huge difference between happy and joy.
Mhm.
And joy is so internal. And until you are truly being yourself, acting like yourself,
Mhm.
living out your true self, you
Yeah.
can't have true joy, because
Yes.
because joy you're born with. Everybody's born, I always say, they're born this divine, amazing,
Mhm.
perfect creature full of joy and curiosity and amazingness. And then stuff happens.
Right.
And that's
Right.
where that veil of
Mhm.
beaten up subconscious comes in. But you have the right, and you have every chance to experience pure joy.
Yes.
So Tammy, tell me, in regards to relationships, how do you, when a person comes to you and they've had a very traumatic background, and they get in contact with you, what is the first thing? How do you address the initial? How do you get them started on the path to wholeness and good health?
The first thing is really just take a very serious, honest assessment of where they are in every single portion. And we do, like, spirituality and finances and family and relationships. And we literally go over everything, because they all kind of tie in together, and find out where we are. Because some people will say, oh, my marriage is horrible right now, but it's all because of money.
Mm.
And and they think, and there's all these little like spokes to the wheel,
Right.
and you want to kind of figure it out. So we do a pretty thorough assessment of that.
Mhm.
And then we kind of pick, let's start somewhere. Let's just, what is right now, what is, on your today, what is the
Mhm.
thing that you feel is holding you back? Or let's, I mean, if someone comes to me and they're married, let's work on that first, because you
Mhm.
don't want to just be like, okay, I'm going to find me and leave your spouse. Like, that's not the answer either. A lot of people just go, okay, I'm just going to go find me and work
Yeah.
on me. Well, you can do that with your spouse if you have a
Right.
supportive spouse,
Right. Right. Right.
But
Well, in
it's the
turn, we have
assessment is
people.
the hardest part, because a lot of people are completely oblivious. They just think, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. And then I'm like, no, we're not. Like, answer these 50 questions.
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing with us. We have people who come to us when they're having issues in their marriage, and all they want us to do is fix the other person. Fix her, fix him. Uh, well, no, that's not how it works. It's like you said. There's several. All these pieces come together to make a whole.
Yeah.
So we just can't fix one piece and
No.
think that it's going to all be better now. We have to go through and honestly look at each piece, and that means you too, not
Right.
just your spouse.
Right.
Exactly. Because especially, if people attract the people, 9 times out of 10, if you're with someone that either had a very similar background, or
Mhm.
and so they have the same, I don't want to say damage because that sounds horrible, we're not
Yeah.
broken,
Sure.
but they have the same characteristics,
Mhm.
which is exactly what's expected from their upbringing.
Right.
And so they don't know there's these issues. They
Mhm.
really don't. I mean, it's funny when somebody points something out to you, even just something so small. Like, a lot of people that grew up in a traumatic household end up marrying narcissists.
Right.
It just happens because they're
Wow.
used to being controlled, and that's comfortable.
Mhm.
But it's like,
Mm.
okay, but like you said, you still have to look at your part in it. What part am I playing in this? And once you become aware, who is it, Benjamin Franklin, that said, with awareness comes great responsibility. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure 50,000 people have said it, but that's huge.
Mhm. I know for myself, I always was able to point out people who were controlling. And I thought at the time that I myself wasn't controlling. But in having a conversation with the Holy Spirit, I found out that there were certain situations and times that I was a little controlling too. And those basically stem from um, periods of my past that were bad experiences that I had that was fear. It was fear based. And it's like, once we we cope, and one of our coping mechanisms could be, I will never allow anyone
Exactly.
to control me again. So what do? You take that place so that no one else can, and you become the one that's controlling because someone was trying to control or did control you at some point. And it could be a comfortable, familiar, learned type of behavior is why you do it, or it could be a coping, overcompensating behavior. But you too have that behavior, and I had to really take some time out and work on myself and say, okay, Cheryl, why? Let's look at why. And you know what I found out, Tammy? A lot of people don't like looking at themselves.
No, it's very hard, and it's very easy to blame everything on somebody else, and because that's easy. That's super easy. I say that all the time. It's very easy to just say, oh, well, my parents did this and that's why I do this. Well, you now know this is why you do this. So now you have to make the choice to act differently. And it's the toughest part of all the healing, honestly, is the self-assessment, because we learn, like you said, their coping skills. We learn, they do great, they help us, and then they are not good.
Right. They
Not
get to
good
a
in the
point,
adult world.
right. They get to a point where they're not working. They're not working for us anymore. They begin to work against us. So, Tammy, I see you've written several books here. So, tell us a little bit about your books. I see.
Well, you're gonna have to hold on to.
Now we got to do a
Gotta take a little quick
sponsor break.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a break here. We're going into our last segment, and we're going to get into some of these books that you have written, Tammy. I'm going to try to pull them up on the screen here. But you're listening to the I'm Love Builder Show with Casper and Cheryl. We have Tammy Vincent in studio with us. We're going to take a quick break. If you're listening live, it's just going to be for a few seconds. And if you're watching later, it might be a minute or so, but we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back with the magic of the internet. I have snagged some cover pages from Tammy's book. You're listening to the Love Builder Show. Casper and Cheryl, we have Tammy Vincent here, and she has written several books. So we're just going to pop up on the screen, Tammy, and just tell us a little bit about this book here.
Okay, so that is the first one. And believe it or not, you can only get my books through my website because Amazon banned me. Okay. So I'm working on, that's a whole nother story, but we'll get into that another time.
That's
but anyway,
a badge of honor. That's a badge of honor.
Yeah, right. And I love when I tell people that because I sell way more books when I tell them I'm banned on Amazon, but they think I did something horrific. I did not. It's literally called Surviving Alcoholic Parents. It's a teen's guide. It's an ABC guide. So it's the things I should have called it the things I wish I knew when I was a kid.
Okay.
Because it's things that you don't understand as a child. And it's just more of a reference guide to go to, you know, who to call, or the fact that you're not alone, or what alcoholism actually is, and the fact that it's a disease, and how to, you know, deal with things with empathy. And literally every chapter is another letter going A to Z. So it goes from abuse to Zen. And it's a guide though. And a lot of people, at first it was written for teens, and so many adults, it's mostly gifted. People that get it from me say, you know, can you send me 3 more copies for my niece, my nephew? And because so many kids are going through these things. And then I was trying to find a way to reach more kids. So the next one is an educator's guide to identifying and empowering the disconnected youth in the classroom. Because I feel like as teachers...
Is it this one?
Yes, helping children of alcoholics and other at-risk students. And then the subtitle is An Educator's Guide to Identifying and Empowering the Disconnected Youth in the Classroom. But I feel like I was a teacher for a little while, and I know because of how I grew up, I know how bad these kids are struggling. And so it's ways for teachers and educators and principals and anybody really that works with kids. It could be Boy Scout counselors or camp people, whatever it is, to just give these kids the benefit of the doubt and really try to look at situations with empathy, because they say 1 in 5 children now have at least one addicted parent.
Wow.
So that's 20% of our kids. Yeah. So in a classroom of 25 children, 25 have at least one addicted parent, and that doesn't even include all the other issues that are going on. So, you know, I feel like kids need a fighting chance. They need to know that they're not alone. And so that's why I wrote that one. And that's what I do is I go and I'm starting to go and speak I want to speak at schools and camps and youth groups and things like that, to just show people, you know, that kids are like I said, we're born these amazing, joyous, perfect creatures. And then life happens and we stop believing that, and we start living the role that we think that we have. And so both of those books were written to help children.
Now the 2 of these have the same cover, but they're different, right? Or
the Surviving Alcoholic Children one, or Surviving Alcoholic Parents, sorry, that is why they have different covers, because I was originally banned from Amazon because of the cover. So I tried to redo the cover, hoping that they would be like, because that's why they told me they banned me. So I'm like, okay, I'll redo the cover, no biggie. And that didn't work. So
yeah. Yeah, but they allow all kinds of other foolishness on Amazon that's just satanic, really.
The words even in the titles of some of these books, I'm like, seriously?
Yeah. It's a joke for sure.
It
So,
is.
so Tammy, in our remaining time that we have left, share with
Which is like 5 minutes.
So share with our audience if there's someone out there who has gone through a traumatic childhood or background, an adult child of alcoholic or addicted parents. What would you have to say to our audience? How can you give them some hope?
Okay, so my best advice is that there is absolutely hope, but you can't do it alone.
Right.
You have to find a support group or somebody, a coach, a meeting, a 12-step meeting. They have adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families is a huge worldwide support meeting.
Wow.
And they have them everywhere, but you have to, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to going back far enough back into your past that you don't feel worthy.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. So there is hope though. And I have people that are 60. I had a lady that was 70 years old and she's like, for the first time ever, I feel like I finally took back control of my life. Like I'm me. And she was 70 or 74. So there is always hope, but you can't go it alone, and the only other thing to say is that you are 100% worth it. I mean, no matter what happened to you, your past does not define you unless you let it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We have the same challenges with folks because they wait until the 11th hour to come to us for help. And had they come to us earlier, we could have avoided all kinds of pain and suffering. But they just don't realize that there's a problem until it's kind of too late. And in your case, I mean, it might be a drug alcohol abuse issue, but in our case, just marriages just kind of drift apart over time, and then the next thing you know, they don't even like each other anymore. Right. Yeah, so it's tough.
And then the real sad part to that, Tammy, is that in marriages they get a divorce and then they want to remarry because they think it's that person, not realizing that they end up choosing the same type of person, and that, as I tell people, you are the common denominator.
Yeah, she told me that. Some people, she told Kathy.
I love it. Yeah.
And so they think if they just end this relationship and go to another one, it's going to be better. No. Is it?
No, absolutely not until you figure out. You need to figure out yourself first. You need to be all in on with yourself and have some self-love and some self-compassion and really learn to love yourself before you can fully, I think, commit to anything. You need to take care of yourself.
No doubt.
And I also would probably add to this that you need to be willing to make the commitment to do it. We tell couples now, this is going to take work because you may have gone 10, 15, 20 years on this path that was not the right path or the best path for you. And it's not going to just turn around overnight.
Nope.
You have to be willing to put in the time, the invest in you, invest in that marriage, and let the change evolve in the pace that it needs to evolve in.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, you have to. It's not easy. It's the same thing with any kind of healing journey coming out of trauma or anything. I say the steps are simple, but the work is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Tammy, but you're worth it.
Yeah. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciated the information. Some great information, folks. You can go and get more information about Tammy by going to tammyvincent.com. It's up on the screen right now. She is a wealth of information when it comes to healing and thriving. So you definitely want to reach out to her and get more information. Hey, Tammy, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna talk to you after the show. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure we get a shout out to our sponsors and let you guys know that we are here to help you. We are here to make sure you become the most valuable partners in your relationships. You can go to our website and get a free ebook. It's the first 5 chapters of our book. And you also can you can go and get a free love assessment. I had a wrong screen up here. Let's see if I can get that. Yeah, you can get a free 5 or 20-minute love assessment from our website.
Mhm.
And, at the end of the day, we just really want to help you become the most valuable partners in your relationships.
Yes.
Because if
If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
And we want to make sure you can do it right. We'll see you on the next show. Bye-bye.